They don't argue to win. They argue to own your emotions. The moment you react, you've already handed them control. Every interaction is a game, but not the kind played on a field. Emotional games are silent duels fought through tone, reaction, and attention. Most people walk into them blind, thinking they are just having conversations, but every sigh, every pause, every sarcastic smile is a move. You think you are connecting, but you are being tested, and the one who reacts first loses control. Most people don't even realize when the game begins. It starts with something small, a question that sounds innocent but carries judgment, a compliment that feels slightly sharp, a story told in a way that makes you defend yourself. The emotional player is not always cruel. Sometimes they are charming, sometimes soft, sometimes pretending to care. What they are really doing is studying you, learning your triggers, testing which emotions make you move, and once they know they own the rhythm, you can tell when someone is playing. They create tension, then offer relief. They pull you close, then push you away. It is never about words. It is about power. The emotional player doesn't need truth. They need control. They want to feel that they can make you rise, fall, smile, or panic on command, and they succeed every time you take the bait. You think you are clarifying, explaining, defending, but what you are really doing is confirming that they have power over your emotions. Once you react, you are no longer a participant. You are a piece being moved across their board. The hidden arena is everywhere. It's in workplaces, in friendships, in families, in love. It's the space between what is said and what is felt. In that space, perception is currency. Whoever controls emotion controls meaning. That is why the calm person often wins without even trying. They don't chase understanding. They don't explain. They let others reveal their own intentions while they remain still. Because stillness in an emotional world is not passivity, it is dominance. When everyone else rushes to defend, the one who stays quiet becomes the one everyone watches. To outsmart emotional games, you must first learn to see them. Notice what people repeat. Notice what they emphasize. Notice how you feel after speaking with them. Do you feel smaller, uncertain, drained? That's the sign you've been pulled into a game. But awareness is the first weapon. Once you see the strings, you can stop dancing. You can let silence answer for you. You can let calmness unsettle them more than anger ever could. The emotional player expects reaction. They feed on it. When you give them nothing, they lose control. They start questioning their effect. They begin to doubt their own power. The hidden arena rewards the observer, not the talker. Learn to hear the real message beneath emotion. People who use guilt, sarcasm, or shame are not strong. They are desperate for influence. They need your reaction to feel relevant, so don't give it. Let them play alone, because the moment you stop reacting, the game ends, and what remains is silence, and silence, when mastered, is the loudest victory of all. Emotional players don't seek truth. They seek reaction. They bait you with guilt, with blame, with subtle provocations that make you feel the need to defend, explain, or please. They feed off your response, not your logic. The moment you try to win by reasoning, you've already lost, because they never played for reason. They played for energy. They don't want understanding. They want movement. They want to see your face tighten, your tone shift, your piece crack. Because every reaction tells them something about where your control ends and where their influence begins. They throw small hooks into the air, disguised as harmless words. You didn't text back fast enough. You always forget things. You don't really care, do you? To the untrained mind, these comments seem simple. To the emotional strategist, they are weapons. They aren't looking for your answer. They're looking for your instability. The second you explain yourself, they smile inside, because they just made you dance to their rhythm. They control not through facts, but through feelings. And the more you try to prove them wrong, the deeper you fall into their trap. The bait of emotion works because it targets your pride. Humans hate being misunderstood. We want to be seen as good, kind, capable, loyal. When someone hints that we're not, it triggers something deep. We rush to correct it, but the more we talk, the more we hand them power. They've made you move first, and whoever moves first in emotional conflict loses control. They know you'll try to fix the misunderstanding, to restore your image. That's when they tighten the grip, adding more guilt, more confusion, more noise. The smartest move is to do the opposite of what they expect. Don't defend, don't clarify, don't even correct. Stay calm, still, unreadable. Let the bait float by. Watch it without touching it. They will feel the silence like heat, and they will start to panic. Because the emotional player survives only through your engagement. Without it, they have nothing. You break their control not by winning the argument, but by refusing to play it. When you stay calm, their tricks begin to reveal themselves. You see how predictable they are, how they repeat the same patterns, the same lines, always searching for a new reaction. They aren't complex. They are needy. They want control because they lack it within themselves. They crave chaos because they fear silence. Once you understand that, you stop taking it personally. You stop feeling attacked. You start feeling pity, and pity is the death of manipulation, because it means you've stepped outside their reach. The bait of emotion is always disguised as care, fairness, or truth. It looks like concern, but it's really control. It sounds like honesty, but it's really testing. Every time you resist the urge to react, you grow stronger. Every time you stay still, their power fades. Emotional players win only when you feel the need to prove yourself, so never take the bait, because once you stop reacting, they stop existing as threats, and that silence, calm and unshaken, becomes your quiet victory. The only way to win an emotional game is not to play it. Detachment isn't coldness, it's control. It's refusing to let another person's chaos dictate your state. While they swing wildly between highs and lows, you remain still, observant, untouchable. You learn to read emotion without absorbing it, to hear words without inheriting their weight. Detachment is the skill of stepping back far enough to see clearly, to understand the difference between what's happening and how you feel about it. Most people live trapped inside reaction. Every tone, every look, every delay in a text becomes a storm in their mind. They mistake emotion for truth. They think feeling disrespected means they were disrespected. They think feeling ignored means they were rejected. But emotional players depend on this confusion. They know if they can make you feel, they can make you move. The detached person moves differently. They don't react on impulse, they wait, they measure, they study. They see patterns where others see pain. They understand that most provocations are not personal, they're projections. People throw their inner mess at others because they can't carry it alone. When you are detached, you don't catch it. You let it fall. You let others feel the discomfort of their own emotion. And soon they learn you are not someone who can be pulled into drama. You become untouchable not because you're heartless, but because you value peace more than approval. Detachment gives you space to think. When someone insults you, your first instinct is to defend. But when you're detached, you see the move. You recognize the pattern. You realize they want you to explain yourself, to prove your worth, to lose composure. You smile inside because you know the truth. They can only win if you join their storm. So you don't. You stay calm. You let silence speak for you. Detachment isn't indifference, it's quiet strength. It's the decision to stay centered when everyone else is spinning. True detachment also means understanding that not every problem requires your emotional participation. You don't need to fix everyone. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to chase closure, because closure comes from calm, not conversation. You stop trying to control outcomes and instead you control your reactions. The moment you stop depending on others for emotional balance, you become powerful. You realize peace isn't something people can give or take from you. It's something you guard. People often mistake detachment for arrogance. They think calm means uncaring. But calm is not distance, it's depth. The detached person still feels, they just don't drown. They know that reacting to every provocation is how you lose yourself, so they observe without absorbing, listen without reacting, feel without falling. And when the emotional player realizes they can't shake you, they lose interest. The game ends on your terms, in silence. That's the law of detachment. You don't win by overpowering emotion. You win by mastering stillness, by being the one who never loses control no matter how loud the world becomes. Never argue. Reflect. When they accuse, question, or dramatize, you don't match their emotion, you mirror it back calmly. Interesting you feel that way. Why do you think that? The mirror exposes manipulation without confrontation. It forces them to see themselves through your stillness, and most crumble under their own reflection. The mirror technique is not about fighting or proving a point. It's about turning their energy back to them. When someone throws emotion at you, they expect resistance. They expect you to defend, explain, or get drawn in, but when you mirror, you give them nothing to push against. You stand so still that their own emotion becomes uncomfortable to them. Most people want one thing in a conflict, a reaction. They want proof that their words landed, that they have power over how you feel. When you mirror instead of react, you take that power away. They start to feel exposed. They hear their own tone bouncing back in silence. They see their own exaggeration reflected in your calm. And slowly their confidence breaks. The louder they get, the quieter you become, until the difference between your stillness and their chaos becomes too obvious to ignore. The crowd, the co-workers, the partner, whoever is watching, begins to notice it too. You look controlled, they look unbalanced. You win without raising your voice. The mirror technique also protects your peace. It stops you from absorbing someone else's emotion. When you mirror, you are not agreeing or submitting, you are observing. You are saying, I see what you are doing, but I won't join you. You let them reveal themselves. A manipulator hates that because their power relies on confusion. They thrive when you rush to explain or to fix things. But when you reflect instead, you force them into clarity. They hear their own words clearly for the first time, and often that clarity hurts them more than any comeback could. The mirror works best when paired with tone control. Your voice must stay calm, slow, steady. No sarcasm, no tension, just neutrality. Because your calm tone is the real mirror. It reminds them how far they've drifted from reason. Sometimes you won't even need words. Just silence, a steady gaze, and a small nod can make them question everything they just said. The longer you stay composed, the faster their emotions eat them from within. They begin to apologize, to justify, to retreat. You didn't overpower them. You made them face themselves. The beauty of this method is that it ends fights before they begin. You no longer waste energy proving innocence or defending truth. You don't step into their storm, you hold up the mirror and let them drown in their own reflection. The mirror doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it simply shows, and most people cannot handle what they see when their drama is no longer met with equal noise. They realize the only person making a scene is them. That's when power shifts, that's when the game ends, not with victory, but with quiet control. Because nothing disarms manipulation faster than calm reflection. It's not about winning the conversation. It's about keeping your peace while the world reveals itself. Every emotional trap relies on a spark. If you refuse to ignite, the game collapses. The most powerful response is silence delivered with composure. When you don't flinch, they lose the script. They start guessing, doubting, over-explaining. Your calm becomes a mirror that makes their volatility visible. You win by absence, not aggression. The power of non-reaction is one of the hardest skills to master, because your ego always wants to speak. It wants to correct, to justify, to make things fair. But fairness isn't what emotional players want. They want control. They want your reaction, your energy, your proof that they matter enough to move you. When you stay still, when you let the words hang without reaching for them, you show something they can't understand, discipline. The moment you stop reacting, the entire tone of a situation changes. Silence shifts the power dynamic faster than any clever reply ever could. People don't expect calm, they expect noise, they expect defense. So when you stay quiet, they become uncomfortable. They wonder what you're thinking, if you're angry, if you're planning something. That uncertainty becomes your advantage, because power often comes from what is not said. The unshaken person always looks stronger than the one who needs to prove their point. Even if they're right, the reactive person looks desperate. Even if you say nothing, the calm person looks in control. Non-reaction doesn't mean indifference. It means you care more about control than about approval. It means you understand that every emotional outburst you avoid is energy you save. When you stop reacting, you begin to see how much time people waste explaining themselves to those who don't even listen. You learn that silence ends more arguments than logic ever will. You start to realize that most emotional traps are only as strong as your willingness to engage. If you don't step in, they have nothing to hold on to. There's a strange magic in stillness. When you don't react, the other person is forced to fill the silence. They start repeating themselves, raising their voice, trying to pull you into their storm. But every attempt exposes them more. You don't have to defend your name, your choices, or your calm. You let their emotion burn out on its own. And when it does, they are left standing in the ashes of their own drama. You are still there, unbothered, watching the flames fade. Reaction teaches people how to treat you. It tells them that your peace is not for sale, that your emotions are not a playground. When you stop reacting, you stop rewarding bad behavior. You stop teaching people that they can control you through guilt, anger, or manipulation. You become the quiet force everyone notices but no one can shake. The strongest person in any room isn't the one who speaks loudest. It's the one who doesn't flinch when provoked. Because silence, when calm and deliberate, is not weakness. It's dominance. It's the moment you prove that control isn't about winning arguments, it's about never needing to have them. Turn emotion into fuel, not fire. When someone tries to provoke you, absorb the energy, process it, and redirect it into clarity. You don't suppress emotion, you master its use. Their chaos becomes your concentration. Their noise becomes your signal. You transform manipulation into awareness, and that's how power grows quietly. Emotional alchemy is the art of taking what was meant to break your balance and using it to build your strength. It's what separates the reactive from the composed, the follower from the leader, the emotional from the powerful. Most people think control means feeling nothing, but true control means feeling deeply and choosing what to do with it. Every emotion carries energy. Anger, envy, humiliation, sadness, all of it can be turned into something useful if you know how to hold it long enough to understand it. When someone insults you, your first instinct might be to strike back. That's fire. But if you pause, if you breathe, if you let that heat stay inside you without letting it burn you, it becomes fuel. It becomes awareness. You start to notice patterns, triggers, weaknesses in others and in yourself. You stop reacting and start observing. You realize emotion is not the enemy. It's raw energy waiting for direction. And whoever directs it controls the outcome. Emotional alchemy begins with stillness. When something hurts, when someone tries to embarrass or provoke you, don't rush to fix it. Let the discomfort sit for a moment. Feel it without moving. Because that space between the emotion and the reaction is where transformation happens. Most people panic in that space. They need to release the emotion immediately. But when you hold it, you start to see clearly. You see that behind the anger is truth, behind the jealousy is desire, behind the pain is information. Emotion, when mastered, teaches you more than logic ever could. The reason emotional players win is because they know how to make others lose balance. But emotional alchemy takes their weapon and turns it against them. When someone tries to shame you, you don't hide. You ask what their words reveal about them. When someone tries to provoke you, you ask why they need that reaction so badly. You turn the question inward, then outward, and suddenly the control flips. You're no longer the target, you're the observer. You've taken their energy and made it your lesson. Powerful people don't avoid emotion, they refine it. They take anger and turn it into focus. They take rejection and turn it into self-respect. They take disappointment and turn it into patience. That's emotional alchemy. You stop letting others decide what your feelings mean. You decide. Every time someone throws emotion at you, you can burn or you can build. Choose to build. Because once you learn to transform emotion into clarity, no one can use your feelings against you again. Their chaos becomes your calm. Their attack becomes your awakening. And in that quiet transformation, you become unshakable. Emotional players rush. They push for instant reactions because control lives in pace. When you slow the rhythm, when you take a breath, pause before speaking, you seize the frame. The calm person dictates the tempo. They make everyone move around their timing. And whoever controls the tempo controls the outcome. Most people lose power not because they are wrong, but because they are rushed. They let urgency dictate their behavior. Someone questions them and they answer too quickly. Someone criticizes them and they defend without thinking. Someone pressures them for a choice and they decide before they are ready. Every quick reaction is a surrender of control. The person who stays still, even for a few seconds longer, changes everything. Control of tempo is control of energy. It's the difference between the person who panics and the person who watches. When you slow things down, emotion loses its grip. The manipulator depends on speed. They want you off balance, emotional and hurried, because when you rush, you stop thinking. You start reacting to the feeling instead of the truth. That's how they win. They make you forget the bigger picture by forcing you into the moment. But when you pause, when you stretch the space between their move and your response, you regain perspective. You see not just what they said, but why they said it. You see the intention beneath the words. That pause, small as it seems, becomes a weapon. The calm person doesn't chase answers. They don't rush to fill silence. They use silence as pressure. Every second you don't speak makes the other person reveal more. They start to talk faster, to justify, to over-explain. You simply wait, watching. The longer you wait, the more control shifts toward you. The tempo changes, and suddenly they are dancing to your rhythm. This is why composure is so powerful. It's not about being quiet. It's about using timing as a tool. When you respond slowly, when you speak after reflection instead of reaction, your words carry more weight. People listen differently. They adjust to your pace. In meetings, arguments, and relationships, tempo is everything. If someone attacks you verbally, the instinct is to fire back. But if you breathe, look at them, and respond slowly, they lose the emotional advantage. Your stillness unsettles them. It forces them to match your calm or expose their lack of it. That's the secret. Calmness is contagious, but so is panic. When you control your rhythm, you control the emotional temperature of everyone around you. You can raise it or lower it at will. That is what leaders do. They don't react to chaos, they regulate it. The one who controls tempo controls perception. They decide when something begins and when it ends. They decide which words linger and which moments fade. By slowing your movements, by pausing before every decision, you tell the world that nothing and no one can rush your peace. And that quiet patience, that steady timing, becomes the ultimate form of control. Sometimes the smartest move isn't a counter, it's disappearance. Don't announce your boundaries, enforce them through silence. When someone thrives on drama, deny them the stage. When they realize you can't be baited, they start performing alone. And in that solitude, their power evaporates while yours multiplies. Strategic withdrawal is not weakness. It's control disguised as absence. It's the ability to walk away without explanation, without anger, without noise. And in doing so, you create a silence that speaks louder than any argument. Most people think walking away means losing. They believe that staying, fighting, and proving themselves shows strength. But that's how emotional players trap them. They pull you into endless loops of conflict, knowing that every moment you stay, you give them attention, and attention is their oxygen. The art of withdrawal begins with understanding that not every battle is worth fighting. Some people don't want resolution, they want reaction. They feed on your replies, your frustration, your need to be understood. The more you engage, the deeper they root themselves in your space. But when you withdraw calmly and quietly, you take the energy with you. They're left speaking into emptiness, and that emptiness becomes their undoing. Because nothing frightens a manipulator more than irrelevance. They can argue with your words, but they can't fight your absence. Walking away strategically is not running away. It's an intentional act of power. You observe, you measure, and when you see that engagement leads nowhere, you step back with no announcement. You stop explaining why. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace. You don't send a message saying you need space. You simply go quiet. The silence becomes your final sentence, because every time you try to explain your withdrawal, you give the other person a chance to pull you back in. But when you vanish without emotional trace, when your calm exit is absolute, they start to feel the weight of your absence, and that's when they begin to realize what they've lost. Strategic withdrawal is the ultimate boundary because it doesn't need to be declared. It simply exists. It tells the world you are not desperate for closure, validation, or understanding. You are beyond the need to prove anything. And that scares people who depend on reaction. They start questioning themselves. They replay conversations. They search for you in silence. But you don't return because the moment you withdraw, you've already won. You didn't destroy them. You allowed their own noise to echo back at them until they collapse under it. Powerful people know when to advance and when to disappear. They understand that control isn't always about staying in the spotlight. Sometimes it's about letting absence do the talking. When you withdraw with composure, you train people to respect your distance. You teach them that access to your energy is earned, not assumed. And the longer you stay quiet, the louder your presence becomes. Because disappearance, when used wisely, isn't retreat. It's dominance. It's the calm reminder that you never needed the last word to win. You just needed to leave. The end goal isn't to out-argue manipulators, it's to outgrow them. You become immune when no game can find a reaction in you. You walk into any room unbothered, unreadable, grounded. Your peace becomes intimidation. Your restraint becomes legend. Because true dominance is not about controlling others. It's about being uncontrollable yourself. Immunity is built in silence, in the hundreds of moments when you could react but don't, when you could explain but choose calm, when you could fight back but decide that peace costs less than winning. Slowly, the world begins to understand that nothing shakes you, and that realization gives you an aura no noise can touch. The aura of immunity doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting feelings control you. You still notice insults, betrayal, or disrespect, but you no longer let them enter your system. They hit the surface and fade. You learn to see manipulation for what it is, an attempt to pull you into chaos. You used to meet it with defense, now you meet it with stillness. You don't feed the storm, you watch it pass. This calm is not natural at first. It's trained. You teach yourself to stay steady when others lose control. You practice not answering every provocation. You learn to pause before you speak, and in those pauses you find power. The more you master this state, the stranger people's reactions become. Some will respect you more. Some will feel small around you. Others will try harder to break through your calm. But that's when you know you've reached the point of transformation. Because your calm no longer belongs to the world, it belongs to you. It's no longer about appearing strong. It's about being so centered that nothing external decides your emotional temperature. That's immunity. The place where peace becomes your armor, where no insult, rumor, or loss can pull you off balance for long. When you reach that level, your presence begins to speak for you. People feel it before they understand it. They sense the difference between someone who is pretending to be calm and someone who simply is. The first looks controlled, the second looks powerful. And that power doesn't need performance. It shows up in the way you move, the way you listen, the way you wait. You no longer chase validation or defend reputation. You know that time reveals truth, and silence protects it. You don't play emotional games because you've seen how small they are. You've outgrown them. Immunity is not distance from life, it's depth within it. You can love, lead, and care without being ruled by reaction. You can face disrespect without losing dignity. You can be misunderstood without explaining. That is the highest form of strength, the quiet confidence that you cannot be moved unless you decide to move. The aura of immunity isn't built overnight, but when it settles, it becomes unshakable. People stop testing you because they already know how it ends. You remain calm, you remain clear, and you remain in control. And in a world addicted to reaction, that calmness becomes your crown. Maybe this video helped you see yourself or someone you know in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments. And if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.